You ever have one of those moments where you're holding a letter in your hands and you just start laughing? Not because it's funny, but because it's so out there you think the universe is pulling your leg. Yeah, that was me. 3 years ago, sitting at my kitchen table staring at some envelope from Aunt Eleanor's lawyer. And get this, it turns out she left me an entire lakefront property in her will. Not just any property either. Dead center of the lake, there's this weird little island, the kind you'd expect to see in a cartoon, just sitting there daring somebody to skip a rock at it and see what happens. She left a note too, tucked right in with the will in that neat handwriting I swear you could recognize from outer space. The lake kept me sane, Theo. Now it's your turn. Take care of my island. Don't let anyone mess with it. I remember laughing out loud at that last bit. I mean, don't let anyone mess with it sounds almost like she knew what was coming. At the time, I thought it was just her being poetic. Turns out she was being downright prophetic. Now, this wasn't some sprawling luxury retreat. The shoreline was a couple 100 feet around the island, was barely more than a sandbar back then. But after wading through a year's worth of zoning nonsense, water rights red tape, and Aunt Eleanor's mountain of neatly sorted paperwork, I found out the place was actually a registered independent land parcel. Legit. Had its own lot number title, all the right stamps, and here's the kicker, totally outside the boundaries of the newly forming HOA communities popping up like mushrooms after rain. So I fixed it up, dumped some gravel to keep the land from washing away, rebuilt. The dock reinforced everything so it would stand up to a good storm, and when I felt brave enough, built a little off-grid cabin, solar panels, rainwater filtration, composting toilet, the whole 9 yards. I didn't want a party island, I wanted a sanctuary. And that's exactly what I made. School breaks, long weekends, when the city got too loud, me, my wife, and our kids would disappear out there. We fished, we read, sometimes just lay on the dock watching the dogs snore in the sun. Loons and dragonflies, maybe a turtle or two for company. Absolute peace. The funny thing was, the town's aerial maps never caught up. The island stayed a sort of ghost, always one step ahead of the official record. Privacy, right? That was what Eleanor loved, what I loved. The lake itself wasn't that big, maybe 50 acres nestled between some old farmland and just across the way, the edge of suburbia. That's where Pine Water Reserve started creeping in. You know, the type brand new houses, homeowners associations with names that sound more like luxury retirement plans than neighborhoods. Honestly, I thought nothing of it. We were far enough apart. I wasn't on their maps, wasn't in their emails, definitely not in their jurisdiction. I figured, hey, live and let live. I kept to my solar-powered oasis. They could have their perfect lawns and package deliveries by drone. Sometimes their kids would paddle by and holler "cool house" from their kayaks. I'd wave. I wasn't some cranky hermit, at least not then. But that summer something shifted. Same folks started circling the island every day, snapping photos, sometimes leaving behind brochures from Pine Water Reserve. I picked one up once and noticed the aerial image had my island blurred out. Maybe just an oversight, maybe an attempt to make their marketing pristine. That was their favorite word, pristine. My friend used to say, that's just corporate for sterile. Still, I didn't worry. I paid my taxes, kept my permits, even fixed up the old public dock nobody else bothered with. Then one Saturday, as I was scrubbing the water pump, this fancy pontoon boat slid up to my dock. 3 people stepped out, dressed like they were headed to a TED Talk, white linen, shiny sunglasses, clipboard. The woman introduced herself first, Karen Wilson, president of the Pine Water Reserve HOA. With her were Jill, the development liaison, and Brad, legal consultant. I didn't even shake their hands. I just wanted to know what they wanted. Nice spot, Karen said, glancing around like she was appraising a hotel suite. Really a shame it's not available to the community. Good thing it's not part of your community, I shot back. Brad chuckled. But Karen just kept that politician's smile glued on. She told me the lake had been voted into Pine Water Reserve's jurisdiction, and that my island was an illegal structure on a shared resource. I could hardly believe my ears. Decided by who? The HOA board. I'm not a member, I said. You don't need to be. Our jurisdiction applies retroactively. I nearly laughed, except I knew she was serious. They started throwing around words like environmental impact, public access, as if saying it made it true. I told them straight I had the paperwork, the deeds, the permits. This place was mine, fair and square. Karen's smile tightened. If you won't cooperate, the board may be forced to take appropriate steps. Jill piped up about facilitating a transition, even offered a relocation grant. I just shook my head. I'm not being relocated from my own land. They left after that, but as the boat drifted away, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just had a run-in with the opening act of a much bigger show. That Monday, I went down to the county records office just to be sure I wasn't missing anything. And wouldn't you know it, Pine Water Reserve had filed to have the lake reclassified as a community-managed recreational ecosystem, basically angling for control of the whole thing. The petition made it to the county environmental review, and suddenly my island was the unregulated private development threatening the lake's health. Drone photos, red circles around my dock solar panels, my place plastered all over their complaint. I sent everything to my lawyer Cassidy, who'd seen enough HOA drama to know when the gloves were coming off. They're laying the groundwork to steal your island with a smile, she said. They don't need to win. They just need to bury you in red tape until you give up. That week, new signs went up, big glossy banners, Lake Pine Water, a community treasure, reclaiming access for all, complete with a website and a video of Karen talking about an unregulated island threatening the lake. She was launching a full-blown PR campaign against me. Then, right on schedule, construction started on the opposite shore, a massive public pier, blueprints, kayak, kiosk, the works. I fired off a cease and desist with proof they were breaking conservation rules. They ignored it. Next came the patrol boat, white electric stenciled Pine Water Lake Watch. Circling my island, clipboard, binoculars, taking notes, never coming ashore yet. That's when I set up cameras, motion sensors. I wasn't going to let them play alone. But then it got even weirder. My friend Drew at the records office found a development proposal not under the HOA, but Coastal Delta Holdings LLC. Plans for a luxury villa right where my cabin stood, pending jurisdictional resolution and removal of unregulated construction. Emails straight from Karen's HOA address. They were already planning my replacement. A few days later, the patrol boat actually tried to dock. Two guys in polos, mirrored sunglasses, flash a badge that looked straight off Amazon. Routine inspection. I told them they had 10 seconds to get off my dock or they'd find out what a water rescue hold feels like backwards. That did it. They left muttering about non-compliance. But the real shock was when I came back after a grocery run and found two men rifling through my cabin blue uniforms. No badges, just inspection. Under HOA directive, I demanded a warrant. They just stared at me. Right then, my buddy Noah showed up, former Army Ranger, current wilderness instructor, and the only guy I've seen scare off a bear with a harmonica. He sized them up, snatched the fake badge, and bam, decked the guy with a punch that echoed. The other ran for the boat and was halfway across the lake before I could blink. Turns out both were private security contractors hired by guess who, Pine Water Reserve HOA. No authority, just intimidation. I called the sheriff, and by the next morning the county paper ran the story, HOA security caught trespassing on private island. The HOA tried damage control, but then they hit me with a lawsuit claiming my island was an unauthorized structure and needed to be removed for public access. Cassidy went full bulldog, countersued, and we landed in court. Karen strutted in with her legal squad, tried painting me as a rogue developer. Cassidy dropped every deed permit, survey, hell, even a letter from Fish and Wildlife praising the place. But the knockout punch emails showing Karen and the HOA had partnered with Coastal Delta to develop the island, funneling HOA funds to the project, even planning my removal. The judge ordered an injunction and sent everything to the prosecutor. Karen looked like she'd swallowed a bag of nails. You'd think that'd be the end. Not even close. A week later, my solar system was sabotaged, wires sliced, GPS tracker hidden under a rock, all traced back to a security firm owned by Karen's husband. Then came the fire. Someone torched my footbridge in the middle of the night, left behind a half-melted HOA logo. I wasn't scared anymore. I was pissed. The final straw came from a city meeting live stream where Karen pitched repurposing the private island for public wellness, all while denying any development plans. Cassidy called an emergency hearing. We brought in whistleblowers board members who'd quit the IT guy who traced surveillance emails, even pulled up security footage linking the arsonist to Karen's husband. By the end of the second court session, the judge froze. The HOA's accounts referred the whole mess to the DA, and 3 board members resigned on the spot. The audit uncovered fraud, illegal surveillance, fake consulting contracts, enough charges to keep a prosecutor busy for years. Karen and her husband were convicted 12 years each, no parole for the first 5. Pine Water Reserve HOA dissolved, pier demolished, the lake left to heal. Now the cabin's still standing, dock rebuilt, new sign at the water's edge, private property, sovereign parcel not subject to vote. Local paper ran a photo of me and my kids fishing, dog curled at our feet. The headline just said he won. A few weeks later, a bunch of high schoolers showed up with a cake that said, "Thanks for fighting the HOA, Mr. Theo." One of them asked, "Does that mean nobody's allowed here ever?" I just smiled. "Nah, it just means you gotta knock." So tell me, what would you have done if they came for your island? Drop your thoughts below. Let's hear about your wildest HOA run-ins. Your fights for what's right or what justice means where you live. Don't forget to share. And if you know someone who'd appreciate a good win against the odds, send this story their way.